Well, let's come back home now. And the Australian Institute says the government needs to find a new approach to childcare funding. A new report by the organisation has revealed that at least 1 in 3 families are finding it difficult to afford childcare, despite the fact that the government has increased assistance levels over the past decade. David Baker is the report's author and also the Director of Research at the Australian Institute, and he joins us from Canberra. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, David. Let's take a look at what you identify as the significant issues in the model that we have for childcare at the moment.
Well, what our research found was that since the introduction of the childcare tax rebate, it's had no real impact on bringing down the cost of childcare. Both when it was introduced and then when the Rudd government increased it from 30 to 50%, costs soon increased after those increases. What
happened to the money? Where has the money ended up?
Well, you would assume that they're being absorbed by cost increases to families. So on one hand, families receive money from the government to help, and on the other hand, they're paying increased costs, and so soon the help is no help at all.
All right. Now, you talk about a model where, in fact, childcare is no more than 5% of average income, or the income of the household. What is it running at the moment?
Well, our research found that households reporting difficulties are up over 10%, and that amongst low-income families, 1 in 5 families are paying more than $10 in every 100 of the household budget.
So that would be way too much. Also, too, the rebate is not means tested, is it? Not at all?
The rebate isn't means tested, and that would be an opportunity for the government to target the support to those people who could most benefit from the help.
Would you see it being a sort of staged kind of rebate?
Well, a staggered rebate, much as it is with the childcare benefit, and then the money the government saves through that means they could then target increased assistance to individual childcare centres, like they announced yesterday with the welcome increase to wages for childcare workers.
Let's spend a moment, though, in terms of this concept that you have about redirecting the money to the childcare centres and sort of more managed funding. Would that not create a very costly bureaucracy in terms of that management to make sure that the money was being put to proper use?
Well, it's an interesting idea that the increased complexity for the public service would be a negative when, at the moment, means testing and forms from Centrelink are adding complexity to the daily lives of every household. And so to take that complexity away from households and give it to people whose job it is to know the system, then that's going to benefit everyone, including the government.
You mean just purely in terms of the rebate, not so much in terms of how that money is managed down the track?
Yes, that's right, both in allocating the money and then allocating it down the track.
What are your thoughts too about the government's proposal to make childcare more flexible as well?
Well, again, the government has made a number of welcome announcements this week regarding childcare to address availability and quality, and now they need to do something about affordability too.
Where does this report go from here?
The reports will be forwarded to the Minister's office today, and hopefully we can engage them in some healthy conversations about how we can improve the system to benefit Australian families.
David Baker, good to talk. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And of course we've been engaging you in healthy conversation this morning as well. We've had lots of feedback from you about this issue. Heidi writes in and says there needs to be more government support to assist parents in returning to work and support for part-time study. Cutting childcare cost is not the answer.
And Dean says perhaps the problem isn't childcare, but that everyone is working longer and harder to pay for what is a very materialistic lifestyle.
Rupert says in the Blue Mountains, affordable is not such an issue. The problem here is access, as in unless you have the luxury of being able to put your kid's name on a year-long waiting list, finding a centre with an unexpected vacancy is a nightmare.
Stephen takes this point of view. If people have children, then they have to be prepared to look after them and pay for them. Why is it that we as taxpayers continue to foot the bill for families for having children? I have no children, and I'm tired of having to constantly pay for other people's children. That's the view.
If you'd like to join the conversation on Breakfast this morning, you can send emails to breakfast@your.abc.net.au to talk about the show online. We're on Facebook and Twitter.